Mom revealed my sister's affair with our stepfather and kicked her out of the house. Now she lives with me and tries to seduce my husband. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my younger sister, Isla, the golden child in our family. My mother always had a clear favorite, and it wasn't me. Growing up in that toxic environment, where I felt constantly overlooked and undervalued, I promised myself that one day I would leave and start afresh. And I did. I moved away, built my own life away from the drama, married a wonderful man named Austin, and gradually I began to heal from my painful childhood. But just when I thought I had put the past firmly behind me, it came knocking at my door, literally. After years of minimal contact, there stood Isla, suitcase in hand, on my doorstep. She was in tears, claiming that our mother had kicked her out after discovering that Isla had an affair with her stepfather. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and in that moment, she looked every bit the lost, frightened sibling I remembered from our childhood. Reluctantly, I let her into my home and my life, not realizing that this decision would soon reopen old wounds and test my limits in ways I had never anticipated. Here I am, caught between my past and my present, trying to navigate the complex web of family loyalties and betrayals once more. This is my story. Allowing Isla into our home was a decision I wrestled with from the moment she appeared at my doorstep. I remembered too well how our mother's clear preference for her had strained our relationship, casting a long shadow over my childhood. But as Isla stood there, seemingly vulnerable and without a place to go, my initial resolve wavered. I thought of the values Austin and I shared, the empathy and kindness that had defined our life together, and that swayed me. With a heavy heart, I stepped aside and let her in. The first few days of Isla's stay were awkward. As she settled into our guest room, the dynamics in our home shifted subtly. Austin was supportive, as always, understanding my conflicted feelings without needing too much explanation. He kept his distance, giving Isla and me space to reconnect, a gesture I appreciated more than I could express. I took time off from work to manage the situation, a decision that weighed on me but felt necessary. As we navigated our daily routines, I recounted to Austin the painful memories of growing up in Isla's shadow, the many moments when our mother's blatant favoritism left me feeling lesser and alone. These confessions, spoken aloud, not only helped Austin understand the depth of my trepidation, but also served as a cathartic release for me, unearthing feelings I had long buried. Isla's presence, initially quiet and reserved, gradually became more pronounced. She helped around the house, made small talk, and tried to bridge the gap of years with tentative smiles and updates about her life. But as the days passed, I noticed familiar patterns resurfacing. Her charm, her way of centering conversations around herself, her knack for making every situation about her needs. One evening, as Austin and I were cleaning up after dinner, Isla lingered by the kitchen island, chatting animatedly about a trivial encounter she had in town that day. Her laughter was light, but her eyes, ever so often, darted towards Austin, seeking his attention. I felt an old, familiar sting, resentment mixed with wariness. The scene was too reminiscent of our teenage years, where Isla's flirtatious nature often drew the attention of my friends, leaving me as the perpetual outsider. Austin, noticing my discomfort, squeezed my hand under the table, a silent reassurance that he saw what was happening and was there for me. Despite this, unease settled in my chest, a gnawing sense that history was repeating itself under my own roof. That night, as Austin and I lay in bed, the blue glow of the moon casting shadows across our room, we spoke in hushed tones about the situation. "Are you okay with her being here?" Austin asked, his voice full of concern. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "Part of me wants to believe she's changed, that she's not the same person who used to steal the spotlight at every turn. But another part of me feels like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." Austin pulled me closer, his presence a comforting constant in the whirlwind that my life had once again become. "We'll handle it together," he promised, a pledge that eased my anxiety, if only for the moment. As sleep eluded me, I lay there, grappling with old wounds that Isla's arrival had reopened, wondering how long our uneasy peace would last before the fragile threads holding it together began to unravel. As the days turned into weeks, Isla's initial veneer of vulnerability began to crack, revealing more of the traits that had so often caused friction between us in the past. Her flirty behavior towards Austin gradually escalated, no longer just lingering looks, but now accompanied by light touches on his arm and laughingly invasive questions about his personal preferences. It was a pattern I recognized all too well from our youth. Isla drawing all the attention to herself, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort she was causing. Austin, ever the embodiment of patience, began to show signs of strain. He maintained his distance from Isla, responding politely, but with a firm coolness that he rarely had to employ. After one particularly uncomfortable dinner, where Isla had tried to coax Austin into sharing stories of our relationship troubles under the guise of sisterly concern, Austin pulled me aside. "Riley, this isn't working," he said, his brow furrowed in frustration. "I don't want to make things harder for you, but I can't be comfortable in my own home with her acting like this. We need to set some boundaries." He was right, of course. The next morning, I decided it was time to confront Isla. I waited until Austin had left for work, hoping that a one-on-one conversation might lead to a more honest and less confrontational exchange. "Isla, we need to talk about your behavior," I began, trying to keep my voice even. "The way you've been acting around Austin, it's inappropriate, and it's making both of us uncomfortable." Isla looked taken aback, her eyes widening as if the idea that she was doing anything wrong was a complete surprise to her. "Riley, I'm just being friendly. You know I don't have any bad intentions," she replied, her tone a mix of defensiveness and mock surprise. "It's more than friendly, Isla. It's disrespectful," I countered firmly. "Austin is my husband, and this is our home. I need you to respect that." Isla's face hardened slightly, her usual charm receding as she realized I wasn't going to be swayed by her excuses. "Fine," she snapped, her voice sharp. "I'll keep my distance." But as the weeks progressed, her assurance proved hollow. While she curbed her overt flirtations, her behavior shifted to more subtle provocations, undermining my relationship with Austin in small, insidious ways. She would make snide comments about our lifestyle, insinuate that Austin and I were too serious, too boring, compared to the adventurous life she led. The tension reached a new peak one evening when Isla brought up their mother's manipulative tendencies during a casual conversation about childhood memories. "You know, Riley, sometimes I think you're just like her," Isla said, a sly smile playing on her lips as she sipped her wine. "Trying to control everything and everyone around you." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. They echoed in my mind long after she had left the room, stirring up old insecurities and doubts about my decisions, about my right to set boundaries in my own home. Later that night, I confided in Austin, my voice breaking with the strain of holding it all together. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," I admitted, feeling defeated. "It's like she's here to tear us apart." Austin took my hands in his eyes filled with concern. "Riley, I love you, and nothing she does can change that. We're in this together, remember? If it's too much, it's okay to say, enough is enough." His words were a balm to my frayed nerves, reminding me of the strength of our bond. Armed with this renewed sense of unity, I knew that whatever decision I made about Isla, Austin would be by my side. But as I lay awake that night, the weight of an impending decision pressed heavily on my chest. How could I turn away my own sister, yet how could I not, when her presence threatened everything I cherished? As the strain in our home grew, so did my resolve to confront the issues head-on. Deciding that understanding Isla's motivations might help me navigate the turbulent waters, I chose a quiet afternoon to sit down with her, away from the distractions of daily life. It was time to delve deeper than the superficial arguments and hurtful comments. "Isla, we need to talk about why you're really here," I began, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It's clear you're unhappy, and your actions are causing tension. I want to understand what's really going on with you." Isla hesitated, her usual quick defenses slowing as she considered my words. After a moment, she sighed, a rare vulnerability crossing her features. "Riley, I know I've been a mess. When Mom kicked me out, it wasn't just about the affair with her husband. It's everything. I've lost my job, my friends, my place. I felt like I had nowhere else to go but here." The confession took me aback. The depth of her despair was something I hadn't fully comprehended. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I asked, my voice softening. "I thought you'd see me as a failure. After all, you've got everything sorted out, and I didn't want to be the loser sister who couldn't keep her life together," Isla responded, her voice tinged with shame. This heart-to-heart opened up a new layer of understanding between us. Despite our past and her actions, it was clear Isla was struggling with feelings of inadequacy and displacement. "Isla, I don't think you're a loser, but I do need you to respect my home and my marriage. Can we try to start over? Maybe help you find a job and a place of your own?" I offered, hoping that giving her a sense of direction might alleviate some of the tension. Isla nodded, wiping away a tear that had escaped her eye. I'd like that, Riley. I really do want to change, she admitted. After our heart-to-heart, I sensed a fragile hope that Isla and I could perhaps mend some of the fractures in our relationship. She appeared genuinely remorseful and even started to make an effort around the house and with job applications. However, the peace and optimism were short-lived, revealing the depth of her unresolved issues and manipulative tendencies. One evening, as Austin was in the garage organizing tools, Isla saw an opportunity. She approached him under the guise of needing help with a heavy box. As Austin leaned over to assist her, she made her move, pressing herself against him and attempting to kiss him. Shocked and repelled, Austin immediately pushed her away. "Enough, Isla!" Austin's voice was stern, his expression a mix of anger and disgust. "This is completely inappropriate. I'm your sister's husband. You need to respect that." Humiliated but undeterred, Isla's behavior escalated as she grabbed at him, pleading and making inappropriate advances. "Come on, Austin. I know you want this. Don't act like you don't find me attractive," she persisted, trying to force his hands onto her. Austin firmly extricated himself from her grasp, his demeanor shifting from discomfort to firm resolve. "This stops now. I'm telling Riley everything," he declared, leaving no room for ambiguity. Upon hearing of the incident, my reaction was immediate and fierce. The betrayal was too deep, too blatant to overlook or forgive. Isla's actions confirmed that any semblance of trust between us could never be rebuilt. That evening, as I confronted Isla, my anger and disappointment were palpable. "Isla, you promised to change, to respect my home, and you've done the exact opposite," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "What you tried to do with Austin is unforgivable. You need to leave. Now." Isla's face registered shock, perhaps at the finality of my words, or the realization that she had irreparably damaged any chance of reconciliation. "Riley, please, No," I cut her off, no longer interested in her excuses or apologies. "Pack your things. You need to leave tonight, and don't expect any help from us. You've made your choices." With a heavy heart but a clear mind, I watched as Isla packed her belongings into a few hurriedly stuffed bags. The air was tense, filled with the weight of broken familial bonds and the sting of betrayal. Austin stayed by my side, a silent pillar of support. That night, after Isla left, the house felt emptier, but strangely more peaceful. The decision to send her away was harsh but necessary, a step I needed to take to protect my marriage and regain peace in my life. Austin and I spent the rest of the evening talking, reaffirming our commitment to each other and discussing how to move forward from the chaos Isla had brought into our lives. The emotional turmoil of the day lingered, a reminder of the painful cost of family betrayals. Yet, with Austin's unwavering support, I knew we could overcome this ordeal, stronger and more united than ever. The path forward would not be easy, but it was one we were ready to walk together, free from the shadows of deceit that Isla had cast over our lives. The aftermath of Isla's departure left a palpable void in our home, but it was a necessary emptiness that brought peace and stability back into our lives. The decision was difficult, laden with the heavy sadness that comes with family estrangement, but necessary for preserving the sanctity of my marriage and personal well-being. Isla, now rejected and desperate, attempted to return to our mother's house, the very place from which she had been expelled. The reunion was far from peaceful. According to snippets I heard from mutual acquaintances, her arrival sparked a severe confrontation. Accusations flew, voices raised to painful decibels, dredging up years of suppressed grievances and bitter resentments. The situation escalated quickly. Our mother, ever the matriarch, refused to allow Isla back into her life, blaming her for disgracing the family name. The argument reached a fever pitch, resulting in neighbors calling the police due to the noise and the aggressive nature of the dispute. By the time the authorities arrived, the scene was one of chaos, with Isla hysterically pleading to be let in and our mother adamant about her refusal. Isla was removed from the property, and the door was literally and figuratively closed on her once more. She was left to face the consequences of her actions alone, without family support or a place to call home. The incident marked the final severing of ties between Isla and our mother, an end to their tumultuous relationship that had simmered with toxicity for years. As for me, hearing of the incident only solidified my resolve to distance myself from the destructive family dynamics that had dominated much of my life. The break was painful, yet clarifying, as it reaffirmed my decision to prioritize my own mental and emotional health over familial obligations. Actually, after Isla was kicked out of my and mother's houses, her journey didn't improve. She drifted from one relative's home to another, each stay ending much like it had with me. Our aunts tried to provide her with shelter and guidance, but Ava's behavior remained largely unchanged. Her ingrained habits of manipulation and disregard for boundaries led to inevitable conflicts. Aunt Susan, the last in a line of relatives willing to take her in, asked her to leave after a particularly disruptive argument. Isla's pattern of wearing out her welcome seemed to cement her path of isolation. Feeling a mixture of guilt and responsibility, I sometimes wondered if I could have done more for her. But every time my phone buzzed with another attempt from Isla to reach out, I was reminded of the emotional chaos she brought with her, a chaos I could no longer afford to entertain. My silence to her messages was a necessary boundary to maintain the peace and stability I had fought so hard to reclaim. Meanwhile, the news about our mother trickled back to me through family channels. The scandal involving Isla and her stepfather had left deep scars, culminating in a bitter and public divorce. Stripped of her marital status and the social standing she so cherished, Mother's life took a nosedive into loneliness and depression. Her health, both physical and mental, deteriorated as she struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her and Isla's actions. The vibrant, if manipulative woman she once was, had faded, leaving in her place a shadow racked by bouts of melancholy and regret. Mother's condition evoked a complex reaction in me. There was an undeniable bitterness about the years of favoritism and emotional neglect, yet seeing her so diminished sparked an unexpected pity. It was a stark reminder of how the dynamics she fostered had poisoned not just her children's lives, but her own. As for me and Austin, we worked on strengthening our bond, appreciative of the tranquility that had returned to our lives. We spent evenings discussing our future, making plans that were no longer overshadowed by the drama that Isla had brought into our home. Our relationship, tested by the events, emerged stronger, a testament to our mutual respect and love. My own life with Austin had finally regained its rhythm. We invested time in our relationship, strengthening the bonds that Isla's presence had tested. We attended couples therapy, not because our marriage was in trouble, but because we understood the importance of maintaining our connection and communicating openly about our feelings and fears. I also took this time to reconnect with myself, engaging in activities that fostered peace and happiness within me. Yoga, reading, and long walks became my refuge, helping me to mend the emotional wear and tear of the past months. Austin and I grew closer, our connection deepened by the trials we had overcome together. The quiet stability we nurtured stood in sharp contrast to the tumultuous lives of Isla and my mother. Their stories, while painful, served as poignant lessons in the consequences of deceit and selfishness. These reflections often filled me with a resolve to live differently, to foster honesty and kindness in my actions and relationships. In quieter moments, looking back at the family tapestry so frayed by secrets and lies, I sometimes wondered about the threads of fate. Had things been different, had our mother chosen a path of fairness instead of favoritism, perhaps Isla and I would not have found ourselves on such divergent trajectories. But life, with its unpredictable ebbs and flows, seldom offers simple resolutions or happy endings. As I watched the sunset from our back porch, with Austin's hand in mine, I knew that while the past could not be changed, the future was still ours to shape. With each day, each decision to choose kindness over bitterness, I was rewriting my story, one where peace was more than just the absence of conflict, but a presence of love and understanding.